Morning, everyone. This is David Feakes, the owner and founder of the Parents Estate Planning Law Firm in Acton. Welcome to this month's PEPtalk. Our PEPtalk, PEP standing for Parents Estate Planning, is our monthly kind of a shorter talk, a deeper dive on a specific topic that we do monthly. And this morning, I think we're going out on Facebook as well. So if you're watching us on Facebook, welcome. This morning, we're going to be talking about legacy planning. And this is one of the topics that I find interesting and fascinating. And it's one of the things that we do in our office that I think really sets us apart from other law firms. And something that I got turned on to about 11 or 12 years ago, and will be forever grateful to the people who kind of introduced this concept to me as part of estate planning, because I think it is so important. And that's the concept of legacy planning. And for those of you, I'm guessing everybody who's watching today is probably in Massachusetts. About a month ago, as we were heading into what Governor Baker thought would be the surge of our COVID-19 cases, the governor in one of his news conferences talked about what he, in his words, not leaving anything left unsaid. And I remember this news conference, and he was relating that a very good friend of his had just lost a mother to COVID-19, and his conversations with that friend, and how difficult the coronavirus and this whole pandemic was making the rituals of death and dying, because we can't go to hospitals, we can't be at a bedside. You know, there's all of these things that we can't do that are part of the presumed and assumed rituals of death and dying. And so the governor's suggestion, the governor's really his plea was that we take these opportunities right now to say what we need to say. And he said that even in his family, I think a notoriously non-emotional family, that he was spending more time on the phone with his own dad, talking more and sharing more and getting his father to share more things. And that was just reminding me of all that we do to try and help people and our clients preserve their legacies. You know, we always say there's 4 parts to an estate plan, depending upon who you are and where you are in life. There is the plan if you become incapacitated. There is the plan to protect your minor children if you have young children. There is the plan to protect your assets. And for most estate planning firms, that's where the process would end. But the 4th part of that is the planning for legacy, what I would consider to be the most important parts of your overall plan. As we often say, you know, soon your kids will not be minors anymore. They will no longer need guardians. At some point, even if you leave all of your assets to your kids, at some point the money most likely is going to be spent. The thing that lasts forever is the piece of you that you leave behind beyond the tangible pieces, more of the intangible pieces. Who you are, what's important to you, your values, your stories, your memories, your guidance when your kids are young, the advice you want to pass on to your kids or to your guardians or to the people managing the money for the benefit of your kids, and everything that's most important. And so, you know, that's something that we do in our office, and I'm going to talk in a little bit about kind of how we do that. The other thing that Governor Baker's news conference about a month ago reminded me to go and do was to dig out the pieces of my own family stories that I actually have. I have 2 things, one from each of my grandmothers. One of them is written and one of them is in an audio recording format. From my paternal grandmother, my father's mother, I have an audio recording that I received from my stepmother about 7 years ago. So after my father had died, my stepmother, I'm sure, was cleaning things out, had come across this recording, and she sent it on to me with a note. And for the life of me, I can't remember what the note said. Maybe it was because I'm an estate planning attorney and she thought I would be interested in it. But it was a recording that my stepmother had done with my grandmother I would say, within the year of my grandmother's death, and she lived into her early 90s. Uh, but it's been a long time. I mean, it's been over 20 years since she's died. So, but here was this recording that had been done with my grandmother over the course of 45 minutes or an hour, recounting kind of the family story, the story of my own grandmother's grandparents' farm, about my grandmother's parents, about my grandmother and my grandfather meeting and dating, and the houses that they bought, and my grandfather's early career with Johnson and Johnson, and how my grandmother was a singer and was in the church choir and used to go into New York City and take singing lessons at the old Metropolitan Opera building. And she used to play the ukulele. And it was a fascinating window into a part of my grandmother's life and history that honestly I never knew before. I knew my grandmother as my grandmother, but this was kind of just a window into that early part of her own life, the early part of her life with my grandfather that I never knew about. And it was utterly fascinating, and I was listening to it again recently. The other thing I have from my maternal grandmother, my mother's mother, is a written history of her family's immigration into the United States. They came from Eastern Europe, and it's about a 20-page book that when my grandmother died, my sister transcribed her long handwritten notes into a book that we distributed amongst family members. And it's one of the most fascinating things that I have. But the thing that I wish more than anything was that that story had been told by my grandmother, in addition to the writing, had been told by her in her own voice, and somebody had recorded that story. Because when I read that story, I can hear it in her voice because I remember her voice. But my kids really never. My oldest daughter, who just turned 23, was a baby when my grandmother died, and they can read the story, but they can't really hear the story the way my grandmother would have told it. I can still do that in my own head. My kids don't have that benefit, and I would give really almost anything to have that fascinating story told in my grandmother's voice. You know, when my wife Paul and I were really starting to work on legacy planning with our clients, we really wanted to get stories from Paula's side of the family, and wanted to get her dad to sit down and talk about, you know, his stories. But by the time we tried to do that, he was, you know, deeper into Alzheimer's, and we just couldn't get those stories anymore. And I think that's one of the things that Paula regrets and that I regret, is that we didn't get those stories sooner, because when you're gone, there's no way to get those stories anymore. There's no way to get those recordings. So that's one of the things that we do with our clients. It's a built-in part of our planning, and it's something that everybody can do. You can pull out a recorder and you can tell your stories. You can work with an estate planning attorney who makes sure that you have the opportunity to tell your stories. But for our clients, at the end of our process, you know, after the documents are signed, we've got a formal plan in place. Every client has the opportunity to sit down with me or one of the other attorneys in the office and to record some part of their story. And it's guided, so we provide topics, we provide questions within those topics, and it's an opportunity just to kind of share all of those things that are most important for each of our clients, those things that they want to pass on and share with their kids, with their families. You know, when we're working with families with young kids, the topic that we are almost always using is called Our Children, or My Children if you're a single parent, or My Child if you only have one child. And it's, you know, just clients talking about their kids and what they love about them and appreciate about them and what makes them proud to be parents of these children. and who they've named as guardians and why they chose those people and what they want those people to know and what they want the people who are managing financial resources for their kids when they're still young, what's important for those people to know about how to use those resources, things about religion and celebrations and holidays, what's most important in terms of family celebrations or family holidays, and what rituals or traditions would they want their kids to keep up. When my wife Paul and I, when our kids were still younger, I think it's been about 10 years since we've done ours, we did our legacy interview because I obviously wanted to create something to share with our kids. And I also wanted to be on the interviewee side of the table. I'm usually on the interviewer side of the table. And we're probably getting ready to update it because now our oldest, as I said, is 23. Our youngest just finished her freshman year in college. And the stories and the advice and the guidance and the things that we would want to share with them now are obviously different than they were 10 years ago when they were essentially preteens. But it was, and still remains until we update it, the coolest 45 minutes I've ever spent talking about my daughters. And it was a very gracious colleague of ours who served as the interviewer and helped us to record that. So, if you have young kids, that's the one we do with our clients. We've got about 20 different topics that we can roll out and use. And for some of our clients, we're doing multiple interviews. In other words, they're starting in one place and they come back and we do more interviews as time goes on. Celebrations is a topic in and of itself. And that's a popular one, especially with older clients with adult children who are digging in a little deeper on these things. The meaning of success is one. For clients who are veterans, there's an entire topic talking about veterans, pets, the family home, the childhood. So it's for us, for me, it's really one of the most meaningful, inspiring things that I do. And I'm grateful every day that our clients allow me to participate in this exercise and that they trust us enough to give them the time and the space to participate in this with them. I would be remiss if I didn't point out that a lot of clients walk through the door with a look on their face that suggests I'm a little anxious about doing this, about talking about a time and a place when I'm not going to be there. But the reality is that every single time when they walk out with, you can see it in their face, you can see it in their body movements, you can just see it in the way they carry themselves. They walk out lighter, they almost float out of the room, and you can just see that something has changed inside them as we've done it. So that's a little bit about our legacy interview. That's a little bit about legacy planning. There's nothing magical about this. There's no special sauce. There is no special process. As I always say to clients, all of us almost every day are essentially walking around with the means to record our legacies. We just don't ever take the time to do it. We're walking around with phones in our pockets that literally have microphones and recorders on them. And we could, at any moment, at any time, be pulling out our phones, hitting record, and recording whatever it is that's occurring to us that we would want to share. And I'll admit, even I don't do that, that even I have to set aside the time and the space very deliberately to do this because life gets busy, life gets complicated. Under normal circumstances, everybody's running in a million different directions, doing a million different things, and we lose sight of this. Partly because it just gets lost in the shuffle, and partly, admittedly, because it's not something that people like to spend a lot of time thinking about. Hey, let's think about my young child's life or my young children's lives without me in it. But I think it's one of the most important things that we can do as parents and as human beings is to share our stories, because that is what ultimately connects us as people. And I can tell you as a child first that the story, and as a grandchild, that the stories are the most important thing you can leave behind. the money is money. We can all make money. What we can't get from somewhere else is these stories and these recordings if they are not made once people are gone. When people are gone, they're gone. And we've really lost a tremendous opportunity to gather that. So I think particularly now, when we're thinking about things and we're thinking that things could change quickly and that that rituals that we've come to expect may not happen the way we've been raised to believe that they will. Funerals, memorial services, burials, bedside goodbyes in some cases, that I think it's more important than ever right now that we set aside some time to gather and capture these stories and these memories and these legacies, because your legacy matters. My legacy matters. All of our legacies and stories matter. They matter to someone, and someone wants to hear them. So if you'd like to explore a way in which we can help you to do this, if you know that you might not set aside the time and the place to do this yourself, we would be happy to explore that with you. You can reach out. I am guessing if I open up the chat window, there may be a link, and if there's not yet, there may soon be a link that will allow you to just book an introductory call with our client services coordinator, so that you can start to talk about how we could help you to do this. If you have any questions, obviously you can reach out to us. Support at parentsestateplanning.com is a great way to reach out to us. And if anybody has any questions right now, you can drop them into the chat window, and I'm just going to scroll the chat window to see what has popped up in terms of questions, but just feel free to quickly type in your questions, and I can answer anything that comes up. So it looks like we do have a question. I've never heard of any other attorney doing this. Wonderful, thank you. Is there a way for us to prepare? Do we have set questions, or do we just write thoughts ahead of time? So as I said, we do have topics. We have questions within those topics. And for our clients, when we're doing a legacy interview, we allow clients to select a topic and then send out the questions ahead of time so that everyone is getting prepared in advance of the actual recording. You know, as I always say to clients, you already know the answers to all of these questions. But sometimes it's very, very helpful to jot down some thoughts, some notes, and have the questions ahead of time so you can be thinking about the things that you want to talk about. What I've discovered is no matter how much you think about this ahead of time, the minute the recorder turns off, there's something else that you will remember. There's just no way in 45 minutes or so to capture everything. And by the way, the shortest recording I've ever done is 12 minutes. The longest recording I have ever done is 1 hour and 40 minutes. Same topic, same number of questions. Just 12 minutes was too short. 1 hour 40 might have been a little bit too long. But there's always something that you don't remember. And in fact, when Paul and I did our recording the first time on our drive back to the office, Paul remembered that we said something about our older daughter, but forgot to talk about our younger daughter around the same topic. And so when we got back to our office, I still had the recorder that we were using to record, and we sat down, we took out the recorder, we created a second track that said, oh, by the way, Sadie, we didn't mean to forget you on this one either. But yes, we do give clients the opportunity to prepare, obviously, ahead of time. So this, you know, is as thorough as we can make it. It looks like the link has been dropped into the chat window. So if you want to chat with our client services coordinator, Lori Darling, you can use that booking link to do that. And Lori can explain a little bit more about our process, including the legacy interview. And she'd be happy to talk with you. And she is delightful to talk to. You'll probably really enjoy talking to her as well. So that's what I have for you today. Again, if you have any questions, support at parentsestateplanning.com. If you would like any more information about estate planning in general or about our office in general, you can find us on the web at estateplanning.com. Lots of resources there for you, as always. But thank you very much for joining us today. I really appreciate it. Again, my name is David Feakes. I'm the owner and founder of the Parents Estate Planning Law Firm. We will be back next month with a new topic. So keep an eye out on Facebook, facebook.com/Parents Estate Planning. And we will list all of our topics that are coming up, so you can register for our pep talks if you see something that is of interest to you. Thanks everybody for joining us. I look forward to talking to you all again real soon. Take care. Have a great day.